All right, ready? I'm Meredith.
I'm Elise, and this is your 20s. Welcome to This Is Your 20s.
Yeah, it's a sad day.
Yeah, it's been a sad week. It's been a crazy week. We have so much to tell you all what's going on right now.
I'll just do a sad violin in the background.
Yeah. Our guest, Camila, who we will introduce very soon. She's gonna set the mood for us.
With sad violin.
We explain what's
I should have brought a harmonica.
Anyway. Let's introduce her. Might as well.
Yes.
Right off the bat. So this is Camila Arguello. She is actually one of my good friends from Cape Town, South Africa, when I did my internship there. So this is my first time seeing her since, and it's really cool that she's at DePaul right now, and we're recording.
I'm like, where's the mountains, Elise?
Yeah, where's Table Mountain?
And then Mayor also went to Cape Town the semester after us, so she knows all about that.
I'll know the references.
I'm keen.
I'm keen.
Are you keen? I'm keen.
Is it?
Is it? But Camila is a badass. She wrote a book called Swipeable. So we're going to talk about that today and what that process was like, what the book is about, what it's all about, what it's going to do for her life, and it's going to be a good episode. I'm very excited.
Yeah. I'm pumped. Thanks for having me amongst the turmoil that is life for you right now. So come hell or high water, we were going to make this episode happen.
Yeah.
So glad we're here.
Yeah.
Honestly,
seriously.
and like, it's nice that we're this is literally our last day of college. We leave.
I'm leaving in a couple hours. Yeah.
And so I just think it's very symbolic that we're still doing this episode on our last day.
I'm so committed.
Yeah, we're so committed.
Look at me,
It's
DePaul.
not going to stop what we're doing.
Seriously.
And,
we are not going to give up and
so
stop.
I'm proud of us for doing this.
So if this is like out of context and it's like years from now and you're listening to this, what is going on right now is the coronavirus has spread and basically turned our lives upside down in 1 week. We basically last 4 or 5 days ago got an email saying that everyone needs to pack up and get out and your college career is over. And for us seniors, this was a big deal because our college career is literally just over like a drop of a hat, and saying goodbye to people like international students, like when am I going to see them again? You know, like just really good friends and people who have made me who I am today from DePaul, just like having to say goodbye so quick. It was just really hard this week. Like we are emotionally wrecked right now. Wrecked.
And it's hard because I think the hardest part for seniors especially is that senior year is hard enough as it is, graduating, leaving all your best friends. And leaving, like, you know, the lifestyle of college. Like, now we're jumping into the real world, like, really jumping in. And it's hard because it's, like, I've spent the last 4 years of my life, and to choose kind of who you have to have time even, because this has all happened so fast, to say goodbye to has been really kind of, like, traumatic. And, it's terrible. I mean, I completely understand why we're doing what we're doing and
why the university is doing this. Yeah,
it makes sense now that I'm a few days out, but going through it is just, it feels unfair, and everyone's upset and everyone's in the same boat, and businesses are freaking out, and it's not just us. So I'm trying to keep it in perspective. But
I mean, but just because you understand it doesn't mean you can't have grace for yourself.
Right,
definitely.
exactly.
And, you know,
and
empathy.
that's important. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's been a really tough few days. Just like so many tears, so many hugs, so many goodbyes. Yeah. Just kind of like reflecting on what this past 4 years have done for us. And honestly, like I was thinking about it this morning when I woke up, like in my last day in my bed in my house, and I was like, thank goodness we have this podcast. Like DePaul gave us this podcast ultimately, and the people we've had to we've gotten to have on it from DePaul are just really special people. And like we're gonna have these episodes forever. Like that is a blessing. You gotta look at the good of it.
And it's a blessing for me and Elise too, because it's like she's obviously my best friend. So leaving Elise is like leaving the other half of my heart here.
Aww.
And so having this podcast where we're like, well, we have no choice but to see each other once we're allowed to like be out of quarantine.
Your friendship will be forced.
Yeah, it's literally forced in a time where sometimes like it needs to be, you need that extra kick in the ass to like, you know, get you to make the effort to be with someone. So it's fine. It's going to be fine.
Yeah, seriously.
We're going to get through it. But
it'll just be rough for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
You know? And then
but everyone is struggling, and everyone's going to be cooped up
Yeah,
somewhere. So
this episode goes out to all the seniors who just had their college just ripped up like from under them. Like, we are so sorry. We're in the same boat. It is rough. Like, it's sad. Like like Camila said, like, you should feel, this remorse and sadness, even though you also recognize why it's happening. You can feel sorry for yourself.
Yeah.
This sucks. This is hard.
It is hard.
And hard. We haven't gotten the email yet, but we probably won't get a graduation.
Yeah.
Which is like all our hard work, and like, that we get that one day to celebrate how much we put into this college career, and now that's gone too. So I'm like, are they going to email us our diploma and just like
click to accept
maybe that's
diploma?
Symbolic too of what your effort is with the podcast, right? Because I think growing up in such a world where everything is about your academics and everything is about like what you're accomplishing, you need to learn. I think one of the biggest things that I've learned time to talk about me. No, I'm just kidding. But
Please.
one of the biggest things that I've learned is you need to have the capacity to self-recognize and to give yourself recognition and not need it from other sources. And I think that so many times you look at graduation as like this, like, finally, like, everyone else will see, when in reality, I mean, like, yeah, but to be honest, I was so focused on like making sure I was like ready to go at the edge of the stage that I didn't even feel it. Like, I felt it when I got to the other side, and I was like, oh shit. And I was so out of it that I opened my things to take the photo that you take at the end of the stage, and I didn't realize that my university was holding my diplomas hostage because of some fee that they hadn't communicated to me ever. So my picture, which is why I never bought it, is me holding, and you can see like inside, like, diploma will be given at a later note.
Oh my god.
And I was so out of it, I didn't realize it until after I took the photo. And then I got to my seat and I went, well, the photographer probably was like, what a fucking idiot. Like, you're so happy for nothing. For the cases that she got today. So yeah, I didn't get my diploma until like July.
And when it comes down to it, it is a piece of paper. Like, that does not define your like success. Like, we had an episode on that, the first one of the season. It was like how to pursue your dreams without a degree. It's just funny how like society has made us like think that this degree is the epitome of success.
Right.
Like,
right. 100%. So yeah, I mean, people get wrapped up in it. I mean, I knew so many people in my row on graduation that were so hungover that's all that they were focusing on was how hungover they were, and were wearing sunglasses and like barely making, you know what I mean? So it's just like, I think graduation's overrated. But
it's a hangover party.
Right.
Yeah.
It's different when like you don't get to make that conscious decision, but I think that there's opportunity to learn, just how to celebrate yourself and know that it doesn't, it doesn't have to be somber.
I think that's so important too. I love that, because I think to myself, all of the accomplishments that I've had in my life, which are great moments, don't get me wrong, but they don't stay with you. I mean, like, the recognition that you get from other people is fleeting and it feels good in the moment, but it's not something that's gonna like stick with you and build, I personally don't think, build your character in the long term. And so self-recognition is hugely important right now. And I think just having these final moments of, we're in this crisis mode, and what are people going to do? Like, how are you going to react in a crisis mode? I think that's more important to see how we all can come together in like a time like this, and see like that it's been an amazing community. And, I hate to say it, like, don't cry because it's over, smile because that's so cheesy, but like, it is kind of true.
And embroider a pillow too.
Live, laugh, love.
Don't worry, just live, laugh, love.
Yeah,
come on.
right. And I don't mean to downplay it at all, but I think we were talking about this today, if I cry anymore, I have nothing left to give. Like, there comes a point in time where you just kind of have to be in it and feel it all and let it happen and move through it.
Yeah, 100%. You can't get stuck there, because I mean, what do you, at the end of the day, from a practical standpoint too, like, what are you going to do? Just like lay in your bed and just like,
I
mean, this is a chance to get creative and to like discover something, and who knows, like, maybe something better is on the other side for a lot of people. And I say that with full awareness that for a lot of people this is horrible and people are losing their job. Like, I get that, but I'm just saying also, from a creative standpoint, I mean, I don't know. Maybe, you'll write your best thing or sing your best thing. Or
right now are going to have so much time to like be by themselves and be with themselves and feel everything that they're feeling with themselves, without social interactions, without influence from other people. Like, use that time to create something beautiful. Like, do something and share it through social media and give it to the world. Like, this might be a really interesting time for us as
or even just
humans.
get to know yourself better. Like
read,
spend time with yourself. Hey!
Jinx.
I love that.
Yeah, read, relax. Like, take this time to, like, I don't know,
come
reflect.
Well, it's funny because I'm really into all the woo woo shit, and so
The woo woo shit.
all about it. And we're here, so we were having this conversation about how Mercury retrograde was pulling us towards a collective healing. All my spiritual mentors have been talking about like the collective and what the collective's shedding and the purging and all this stuff. And I'm in a group, or I was in a mastermind of all these women, and all of us were experiencing like a massive purge, like through just like really vivid dreams, and like everything was happening physically. Like we were just all going through all kinds of stuff. And then it seemed like the purge went from like my body and my group of women to like the world. So I don't know. I think that there's opportunity, obviously, in times of distress. And I think this is really like a challenge to really, see what we're made of as a community too, because oftentimes people are like, oh, well, if we were in a crisis situation, I would do X, Y, Z. Well, now's your time to actually show up. Like, are you going to show up for your neighbors? Like, I was so inspired and so moved by it. Someone put together a Google form for the Bay Area for people, like, needing someone to go grocery shopping for them. And then it was, like, a volunteer list of, like, these are the tasks that I'm available to help with.
Wow, that's amazing.
And then they're matching it, you know what I mean? And matching it with people. And I was like, that's what we need to do right now. We need to, like,
come together.
And show up for each other, because at the end of the day, like, there are people that can't buy their groceries or have childcare. And, like, no, I'm not saying everyone should work for free, but I think there is great opportunity to.
Yeah. And I think also, like, showing up for someone, but also listening to the guidelines that people are like that the government is giving us, I think is also hugely important right now. And I'll be honest, like, these past few days, all of us college students have been kind of like, oh, let's go wild and crazy. Like, this is our last moment to do so. And now that we're all heading home and I'm seeing how it is escalating, I'm kind of like, okay, I actually am happy that DePauw is doing what they're doing and sending us all home and being proactive. It feels terrible right now.
It sucks.
But it probably is going to end up being,
more contained. 100%. Because I mean, the last thing in the world that you would want, like, imagine if it wasn't just the end of your senior year, but it was the end of your senior year because half the campus caught coronavirus, and people were sick, and then you were like, are my friends gonna die? Like,
that'd be different.
Not to make it all shit could always be worse, because shit could always be worse, but like, that could be a completely different story.
Their loved ones are going to be affected. Like, I'd rather give up my college career than have someone, lose 10 plus years with their loved ones.
Right,
you know?
exactly. So,
Oh,
that's very true.
And man, this is like a really strange time. I cannot believe we're living through a fucking pandemic. I never thought.
Did you guys ever play the game Pandemic?
No.
It's a computer game. I've been having so much, like, guilt over it.
Oh, no.
I remember being at my computer being like, God damn it, Madagascar closed all their ports and I can't kill
Oh, wait, I do know that game.
The whole point of the game is to kill the world.
Are you for real?
Yes.
Yeah, I do know that. And
this whole week I've been itching. I've been like, I want to play Pandemic. But then I'm like, it's so inappropriate and it's something like this. And then I'm like, but I want to play Pandemic
my friend was talking to me. There's literally a movie and this is the plot. Like, it started.
Well, and there's even like did you see the writing of, you're like, no, I don't follow crazy shit like you do, but there's a writing from a psychic. Oh, fuck, what's her name? I don't remember.
I saw this.
You saw that? How about how, like, in 2020 there will come a respiratory pandemic and and it will go away as fast as it appeared, and it's like supposed to signify like this collective whatever, and it was written in like the 60s or the 70s, and I'm like, and you all think it's a lie until it's true.
I know
it's no longer a lie.
Wait, I have a question. What's your astrology sign? Because I'm
Virgo.
new. Really? Okay, yeah. I'm new to all of this, and I'm learning all the signs, and I'm just really interested in it.
I don't even like know that much about astrology. I know more about like, well, I guess I know a little bit, but astrology and I don't know. It's never like human design, however. No, that's interesting.
Tell me more.
So human design, it's also based on like time of birth and location and stuff, but it's about more like how you process things, kind of like, it's based on like the chakra system, but a few more chakras and like which channels navigate how. And
interesting.
It's very interesting. You can take free quizzes online. They'll tell you your human design. But I think like anything, things like that have to be taken with freedom and not with constriction, because I think people get so wrapped up this is the issue I have with like the Enneagram. People are like, I'm a insert here, and then they're like, so I can't ever change. So they see it as like almost like a validation of their habits, personality, whatever, and then they never want to like work on themselves and grow or whatever. So like, yeah, like human design, right? Human design or astrology or whatever can be a marking point, can give you information about yourself. But I think where some people just get way too cooped up in it is they're like, well, that's it, and like everything else kind of just goes out the window. And I'm like, that's not the point of any of that. It's just like more information is so you can utilize it.
Right.
And at the end of the day, like we're all collective. So we all have to learn to work with every other person, not just be like, it's just who I am. So,
yeah. And there's
I'm
little
just
bit.
a bitch. Sorry.
There's a little bit of everyone in everyone. You know, like we all are
100%.
one.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer. Have you seen the I've said this like 6 times on this podcast, but I love it. The egg, the video. It's basically a video on YouTube, and it's really artistically beautiful. But you should watch it. I'll send it to you. But it's basically like the idea is that we are ultimately all God. Like when we die, we live every single life, and we keep dying and reliving.
I think I've read that.
Yeah.
What you're talking about, but I think I've done it in like reading form. Which really tripped me out because I'm like, am I marrying myself? That was my first thought. I'm selfish. It's fine.
Talk about your book.
I'm ready.
Which is called Swipeable, Avoid the 8 Mistakes Men Make on Dating Apps and Discover What Women Actually Want. You are an author. You are a published author. Like, what does it feel like?
I'm so proud of you. Seriously.
So I was doing a little recollection on my Instagram. Which is a fancy way of saying that I looked up pictures of myself at a young age and posted deep captions.
Wait, give him your Instagram really fast.
Oh, yeah. It's at Camila_Ari, A-R-R-I. Camila's with 1 L, just in case anyone was wondering. You're like, oh, is it with 2? No, that means stretcher in Spanish, so don't call me. Anyways.
Stretcher?
Yeah. Camilla, it means stretcher.
Gotcha.
So every time someone's like, is it Camilla? I'm like,
No.
No. So, anyways, I mean, it feels really trippy. I don't think it's really settled. At the time of this recording, it's been out for actually exactly a month.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Happy month anniversary.
Thank you. Wow, me and Swipeable doing it big.
This is the book.
Swipeable.
But it's just really trippy. I mean, I moved to the States in 2001, right after 9/11, which is a fun time to immigrate to the United States and be brown. But I moved with no knowledge of English. Like, I didn't know English. I knew one phrase, throw the ball. So when I did my entrance exam for private school, like private Christian school, they were like, throw the ball. And I was like, I got you, fam. And then they were like, now color with a crayon. And I was like, throwing the ball still. So
how old were you?
I was 5.
Okay.
And so they wouldn't let me into first grade because they were like, she doesn't know English. And then in kindergarten, my like earliest memories of the U.S. are just like, I'm sure that it wasn't as prevalent, but like, of course, like the horrors, they stick with you more. Mm-hmm. So I just remember like not being able to communicate, not being able to like read or talk. And like, I'd like to say like I generally did spend about 3 or 4 months in a corner, like just because like, I don't know anything. So I picked it up. Like I taught myself English, and I always like to say that's the first obstacle I really overcame. Was like I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm just gonna teach myself English. And then my teacher at the time always liked to tell me how I wasn't gonna ever learn English, and how I was never gonna speak it correctly or whatever. Joke's on you, Miss Harbaugh. If she's alive at the time of this recording. Who knows? She was probably dead. Anyways, just kidding. Love, peace, and blessings to you if you are actually listening to this.
What if she's actually listening?
Can you imagine? She's like, oh my God, I'm on blast. Yeah, I did say her name. Oops, sorry. Anyways, that was one for my self-esteem. My 5-year-old's little vindication. Anyways,
Heads up.
Yeah. But yeah, so she just was always kind of like saying that, and so I remember just having a sense of like, no, like I'm gonna do it. And then the next year, like I read C.S. Lewis, like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was the first book I read cover to cover in English, and then I read the whole series, and then I was like, can't stop me now. And then I got really into books, and then life got turbulent and books became like my thing. And I remember thinking, I was like, man, if I ever published a book, like I would feel like I could die happy. Like that's what I always thought growing up. So now I'm like, well, looks like the Lord ain't taken me yet. So what am I gonna do next?
And how old are you?
Right now?
Yeah.
23.
23.
23.
And you published the book at 23.
Yeah.
Let that sink in. Like, that's a
incredible.
huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
Like, I hope you know. You do know.
I mean, yes. No, but yeah. So mostly I'm just tripping out, just because like it feels weird, because like even just like adding author to my
Insta bio and all that.
to my email signature.
Oh yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
wow, this feels so serious. I'm typing the word author. And at the same time, I've had to combat so much imposter syndrome when it's come to the book, because like it's really short on purpose, because it's made for busy men. So like, are you going to read anything that's long? Absolutely not. You can't even read Instagram captions. So anyways, it's made for like a busy professional to just get through it really, and ideally 1 to 2 sittings. So I wasn't going to make it really long. And I had all this like imposter syndrome about it not being long enough to be a quote unquote real book. Lots of things that it wasn't a real book. I also had.
We have a phone call.
Is that me?
I don't know. It's not me.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's probably my people calling your people. But the other end of like the imposter syndrome on the book was the fact that it is self-published, and I always had an idea that like, you know, someone one day was gonna like have or hear an idea that I had, that they'd be like, wow, the world needs to hear this, and someone else would make that decision for me. So even as like the month before we officially went out, like when I actually started telling, because I didn't tell people about it, like I wrote basically the whole thing, didn't say anything about
that's
it.
What
no one had any idea.
I had no idea.
I like popped into Instagram stories one day and was like, by the way, I'm finishing a book right now, and everyone was like, what?
I saw that and I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, I've been what?
And even like the week before, like when I started polling on the covers, people were DMing me. They're like, what's happening? And I think it's also because we grow so accustomed to everyone talking about everything. Like we don't have any separation or any boundaries. I'm glad that I kind of like didn't. But even until that point, I was like, man, does it really count? Like, can I actually call myself an author if I'm publishing the book? Because it's not someone else being like, well, the world needs to hear your amazing, inspiring message.
That's so true.
And it's just me saying like, no, like I'm gonna put this out and I'm gonna throw all the money behind it, because honestly, like a book is not cheap thing.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, it's my money and it's a gamble at the end of the day. Like I was like, you know, when
take those risks in your 20. Take them.
You got to take them. I was 20s. At a conference and I heard this guy talk, and he was like, you know, like a book is the fastest way to spread your message. You can do all these things for you, can open so many doors. And I was like, like that's all I could think, because I was like, I'm about to drop so much money, aren't I? That's always the thought I have right before I drop a lot of money. Fuck. And I had just come back from Cape Town, and to be quite honest, I'd maxed out a credit card living in Cape Town because I wasn't working this whole time, and I funded the whole thing myself. So I was like, great. And I had just like, I had one open credit card, I'd maxed out another one, and then I was like, if I do this, like I called my fiance. Well, at the time we were engaged, and I was like, hey, like I feel like I have to put out this book. And I just remember him being like, do you feel it in your gut? Like, is the time now? And I was like, the time is now. And he's like, well, you got to pull the trigger then. I'm like, okay. And
that's awesome that you have like a good support system. That's,
like,
100%.
willing to
and you guys are so cute. Like, so cute. I'm so happy you, like, it's rare that you find someone who, like, pushes you to be the best version of yourself. And, you know, like, I feel like a lot of people, that's really hard to come by. So, congrats on your love.
People aren't, like, willing to accept feedback.
Yeah, that's
everyone
true.
Everyone romanticizes this like overblown, like, oh, everything's just like rainbows falling upon my suntan skin. And that's honestly not what a relationship looks like most of the time. Like,
you have to challenge each other.
Definitely not. Someone who's been in a 3-year relationship, I can attest to that.
Absolutely not. Yeah, it's really not. It's more about like conscious choice making. That's what I always like to say. One time I did an interview where I don't remember what it was about, but it was like, you know, like, what do you need for a successful marriage? And I listed off all these things, and then we got to the end of the interview, and he goes, can I ask you a question? And I went, yeah, what's up? And he goes, you never said love.
Oh.
And I was like, well, I don't think that that's like the foundation of a successful marriage. Like, in my opinion, it's not. So
it obviously has to be there, but it's not the only,
you know, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No. And Dom, when you're listening to this, I love you so much. But anyways, I don't, because I think love is fickle. Like I love Dom, like from the core of my heart, but there are days when loving him as an action is a challenge.
Oh yeah.
Like we went through a hard year. Like 2020 2018 to 2019, it was a hard year.
Yeah.
Coupled with me living in Cape Town for 3 of those months, and then me going back, me wanting to stay in Oregon and not wanting to move back to the Bay Area. Like, we had so much disconnect and so much struggle, and there were so many days that I wasn't, like, I had to make the decision, I'm going to choose to love you right now.
Yeah.
Instead of choose to leave you, because it was really like where we were at. And we had that so many times. I really don't. I think that at the end of the day, I think a successful marriage or a successful relationship or partnership or whatever, any relationship is just a conscious decision every day to show up.
That's so true.
And like be willing to show up through everything that happens, whether it's like the ups and whether it's the downs or whatever. You just have to show up. And I think that's where people were so, I don't want to say selfish, but we're so embedded in this like, if, you know, you deserve whatever, a conscious partner. And then, but like at the end of the day, like relationships are work. Like it's not, you
hard
know,
work. Yeah.
It's not going to be sunshine and rainbow. So I think if you predicate it just on the sensation of love, sometimes you get yourself in trouble because you know, there are plenty a day where halfway through the day I was like, man, I just,
it's hard to love. Your face
right
now
makes me angry right now. You have to just stay there and like be willing to be in that space. So yeah.
That's so true.
Anyways, that was a very random tangent on that, but I did meet him on Tinder.
Yes,
so
that's full circle.
Perfect. We're gonna segue right back
come on
into
back
it.
to the book.
Yeah.
So we did meet on Tinder.
So you met on Tinder how long ago?
Well,
Water break.
gotta stay hydrated because of the coronas. Well, I swiped left on him, so I swiped no on him from 2014 until 2017.
He just kept showing up, like, on your Tinder.
Yeah, honestly, I was like,
Persistent.
is Tinder broken? And our running joke is that during this time, I was like, God, why won't you send me my partner? And the Lord was like, I don't know what the F you want me to do, Camila.
Yeah.
I've sent you this man 7 times.
On Tinder.
Said no every time. To be fair, he had a trash profile, so, you know.
What did it look
didn't have
like?
my book. Oh, so many selfies. There was like 5 selfies and one, maybe like 4 selfies and 2 non-selfies. He didn't switch out his pictures very much. Like, he genuinely was like, you didn't see me that much. And I was like, I can tell you which ones of your pictures were the new ones and which ones you'd had since 2014, okay? His bio was so freaking long. It was trying so hard to be so funny. And I was like, this is like 6 paragraphs too long. Just kidding, it wasn't that long. But it was like a long, and I was like, damn, this dude's either a douchebag or just needing help. And so I was just like, no. And we didn't actually, everyone always says like, oh, Camila, what change did he make to his profile that you were finally like, okay, yeah, now I'm in? And none of them. Like,
the answer is none.
The answer is I never swiped right. What actually happened was I was real pissed off because this dude that I met, I was stood up on a date with one guy.
Ugh.
And then I was like, excuse me, I'd never been stood up before. So I was like, you don't stand up the player runs the game. So I was like, okay, the MVP's going to read a book, I guess. So I was reading a book, and then this guy ended up talking to me. And then I got real invested in that guy, the guy who came out and talked to me while I was stewing. And then he moved back to Virginia and like didn't even send me a text about it.
Oh,
and then
nice.
I texted him and was like, you know, like I finally got over it. I was like, I mean, I'm just waiting for him to text me. And then I was like, you know what, go after what you want. So then I texted him and I was like, yo, like I want to see you again. And then he was like, yeah, so I'm in Virginia now.
what the heck?
What? Our magical cheesecake date didn't like make you swoon over for me and want to stay in California for the rest of your life? Okay. So I was stewing about that guy, and then Tinder used to have, I don't know if either of you have been on Tinder, but
oh yes, I have.
Not.
at least it's like yes. So Tinder, did you ever use Tinder Social?
No.
Okay. See, I'm so old in the dating app game. It's when you know you're old because you know what Tinder Social is. So Tinder Social used to be groups of friends. Like you and Mary could make a group, and then you'd match with other groups of people.
Oh, that's kind of fun.
So you could go out to parties, or you could, I don't know, have an orgy. I don't know, whatever floats your boat, I guess. Everyone thinks that's what that was
Either
for.
or.
Like, people are like, was that for the orgy? I'm like, no, it was so you
Make
could go
friends.
to concerts and, like, go to people's parties. I don't know. Anyways, so we were on Tinder Social that night because the friend that was with me, who's from Spain, so it was like, everything kind of like perfect set of dominoes had to happen for this moment to happen. So she was there and I was stewing about Virginia Dog. And so then she was like, you know what? We're fixing this tonight. So she set our radius to 1 mile and was like, we're going to go out with some dudes tonight. So then nothing happened then. I think we actually went on one of the weirdest like third wheel dates I've ever been on in my life, and it was in a Wendy's. So when you know it's bad.
Oh my god!
The guy had
so
some
funny.
really interesting thoughts on colonialism that I was like, meow.
Yikes.
So then, and then on 4th of July, which was a couple days after that, my phone buzzed, and I was like, oh, we have a social match. And I was like, a social match from like 4 days ago? I'm like, what was happening back then? So then I like opened the app, and it was his group, and I remember being like, do not say anything in this group chat. Like, this is, I was like, this is the douchebag I've been avoiding on Tinder for 4 years. Say nothing.
Wow.
And then we didn't. Neither of us said anything, and I was just waiting for it to like go away. And then one of his friends made a really dumb comment, and then Dom commented after it. And then I was like, oh, that's mildly funny. And then, yeah.
Wow.
That's insane. That's like
what
such a crazy story.
And so you guys all hung out, and then you met.
No.
Oh.
He actually, we talked a lot on the app, and then it got to the point where it was just me and him going back and forth. So everyone was like, could you please remove yourself from this group message?
Right.
And we were like, well, okay.
Get a room.
So we got our own text thread.
Get a virtual room.
The elevation of our relationship. And then we talked on the phone once, and I was like, wow, I'm really into this guy. And then he blew me off for a week, and I was going to move back to Oregon. So I was like, yo, like, you know, we're either doing this date now, because I used to be an ultimatum kind of person. Lovely patterns we've unlearned. So I was like, we either go on a date this week or I'm going to move back. And I was like a month away from moving back, but I was like, I'm over you. Mm-hmm. So then he was like, well, you know, like, I'm not looking for anything serious, so I guess if you're worth it, I'll wait. And I was like, excuse me.
I am fucking worth it.
I was like, well then. So then I kind of just gave up on him. And then on the night of his birthday, he sent me a text that was something along the lines of, my homeboys canceled all our plans, so I'm free.
My homeboys.
And I was like,
You're like, that's douchebag.
I was like, well, I'm with my friends, so she has to come too then. And he was like, okay. So we met up for dinner, and it was me, him, and my friend. And then it was a decent first date, I guess. It ended kind of on a sour note, and then we came back for our second date because he was like, oh, it'll be so much better. And our second date was trash, and I spent the whole time angry at him. And then I realized halfway through our second date that I was going to marry him. And then I was very irritated at myself. I was like, what the hell? I was like, where did that come from? I was like,
whoa.
Single till we die, dog. I was like, no, I'm the player. This is my game. So choked on a piece of bread at the Cheesecake Factory.
Love that.
And then so that's the running joke why I always tell people on first dates, like, don't ever eat bread because you never know what you'll think. So I choked on it, and then he was like, are you okay? And I was like, the bread's just so good here. And he was like, have you like, never been to the Cheesecake Factory? And I was like, ah. And then, yeah, that was it.
Wow.
It's all downhill from there.
That's crazy.
It, like, the amount of time and, like, triumphs you guys had to, not triumphs, but trials you had to go through to, like, actually be where you are today.
Yeah, and it was crazy.
Don't give up.
No, don't give up.
Yeah.
Because 2 weeks after that date, we were together in a relationship. Mind you, neither of us had wanted to be in a relationship at all. And then we'd both looked at each other and been like, yeah, I guess we're getting married. I don't know.
Like, fuck.
I guess this is just what's happening now. Yeah.
I feel like you're just a very intuitive person. And when you feel something, you acknowledge it right away.
In those days, though, I wasn't. Like,
Really?
I was fighting myself at every turn. Dom was kind of like the turning point of, like, me really getting in sync with myself and my intuition. And so I just remember, and then 2 days after that, I, like, blurted out, I love you. And I was like, who have I become? And so
Love is a crazy thing.
And then I was like, well, I guess I'm just messed up now. Okay, have my children, I guess. Anyways.
That's like kind of sounds like me and Jay's relationship a little bit to the start of our relationship, at least.
Yeah, definitely.
We like
It
did
was
not
quick.
like each other at all. Like we.
Oh my! As her best friend going through this, I was like, Jay's a piece of shit. I was like, no, this is never gonna work out. Like what? You both are just not. Just it's not compatible.
Yeah.
And then look where we are.
Oh,
So
Lord.
what? Like from all of your experiences, your crazy like ups and downs with Tinder, like what ultimately was like, I want to write a book about Tinder.
Yeah.
Like why?
I was actually a professor. So when I moved campuses for the third time, yes, I took an intro to media studies class, and there was this like big project that was like, and you'll read about this in detail in the intro. But anyways, there's this big project, and I was basically like, I joked around. My roommate was like, yo, you should submit a proposal for writing about Tinder. And I was like, that would be so funny because it'll get rejected. So I typed it up. And then he was like, okay. And I was like, oh, my God, okay. So then I had to do an academic approach to Tinder. And then I read Modern Romance by Eric Kleinberg and Aziz Ansari. Highly recommend. And then after that, I was just kind of like, it became my thing. And then my roommate was like, yo, I dare you to write one paper about Tinder in every class you ever take. And I was like, well, that's going to be a stretch for like in childhood development. And I was like, okay, how can I do this one? And I did. I was so proud of myself. Yeah, I wrote about it in econ. I wrote about it in like all my classes, excepting like one like multicultural whatever, because she just made us write about a movie, and I was like, God damn it!
How can I put Tinder into this?
My stream because there's no multicultural films about Tinder.
Oh wow!
So yeah, so I wrote about it, and I just kept writing, and then my thesis was actually on the intersection of politics, romance, and technology. So it was like my overarching
Politics,
thesis.
romance, and technology.
Oh yeah, I can riff on that all day. So
I'm trying to think I'm thinking in my head, how can I fuse those three together? And that's
you're like,
incredible.
how?
I'll find out, I guess.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, so one of my degrees is in psych and the other is in international relations. And then I had this passion, like burning passion for Tinder. So I was like, how can I marry these three? And so I kind of like sat up late at night thinking about it. And my thesis actually ended up being on, well, the title of it is The Modern Day Capulets and Montagues. And it's a look at how Democrats and Republicans and their behaviors on dating apps. So basically like the existence of political information changing not just your behavior on the dating app, but your perception of attractiveness of another person.
Mm-hmm.
So like, do you think someone's hotter or less hot because you know their political affiliation? So yeah. So that's what I did for my thesis. And then after that, the professor from the very first media studies class was always like, you should write a book. And then finally, when I realized I wasn't going to get my minor,
in media studies
at Linfield College, now University. If all of you are listening, please send it to me.
Please give me my minor.
At the president right now, at Miles.
Oh,
it's me.
Name drop.
Just kidding. Miles loves me. So anyways, Miles Davis, if you want to send that my way, that'd be great. So yeah, when I realized I wasn't going to do that, I was like, well, I just should do something in the spring to occupy my time. And it also kind of became a good respite. I took psychology of good and evil, and so we had like a large section on genocide, and it was just like a lot of heavy stuff in the very beginning. And I was also taking history of the Holocaust at the same time, so like a lot of my day was just like very stressful. And with a senior thesis that went 6 ways from hell, and all things considered, like. And then my best friend's dad died, and like everything just like my life kind of just imploded on itself last March. And so I was like, well, I guess I'll write a book in the meantime, because I'd already dropped the money. So I was like, well, here we are. So yeah, so I wrote most of it then, and then I hid the rough draft in my drive for 6 months, and I told no one that it was done.
Wow.
But that's insane, like, because you're talking about how the fact that your life kind of imploded, and we talked a little bit about this at the intro. Our life is imploding a little bit
currently
right now, and you chose.
Drop the coffee.
Scared the shit out of me.
I just had 3 drops.
But you like chose to take a risk and chose to use that time of feeling and going through it and living through all of the shit that you were going through and using that towards a creative outlet
to do something.
And I think again that can just be like a helpful lesson to the people that are listening to this now, thinking, what the fuck am I going to do?
Yeah.
I mean,
do
what you have to do to make sure you're mentally sane and doing what you need to do. But if you've ever been thinking to yourself, I don't have enough time to do this,
well,
now you do.
Now you have more than enough time.
Here's handed all the time you need. Like.
And also, I think that college and universities and society just has such a way of making people feel like they're powerless. Like, I say this all the time. Like, I was able, and you know what? I'm not even going to do my little intro to that. Trying to get better at just talking about my accomplishments. Yes. Like, I finished 2 degrees, like 2 full bachelors within 9 semesters, taking time off, having PTSD, having anxiety, like living abroad, having all kinds of stuff, like financial turmoil from something that happened. Like, life was not like roses and sunshine, right? And my biggest gripe with college students is that everyone just wants to talk about the shit. And everyone just wants to commiserate. And college campuses, to me, are some of the most negative places on earth, because everyone is just working to survive until the weekend. and then partying their lives out Friday through Sunday, and then waking up on Monday looking towards the weekend again. And then everyone's like, it'll be so different when we're out here. And I'm like, no, the fuck it won't. Look at everyone in their 30s and in their 40s that does everything, hates their life, hates their job, gets to the weekend and is like, I'm free, and then comes back and changes themselves all over again. No, that was not a good word, but
jail.
whatever. Comes back and like puts themselves emotionally like in that upheaval every single week.
Yeah.
Like, you're complaining, and like, I get it. Like, there's some real ass shit, I like to say, that is faced by college students. Like, the amount of debt, the issues that people face is no less severe because you're in college. I think a lot of people minimize it, and they're like, but they're just college kids. Like, no, like,
we're humans.
Real
like,
shit happens in college.
Shit.
However, you can either live your whole life saying everything is stacked against me and that's why I didn't succeed, or you can live your whole life and say everything was stacked against me and that's why I succeeded.
Woo! I love that. I really love that.
Mic fucking drop.
Mic drop. That is
Listen.
so true, though. You used all of your adversities and all your hardships to make something that, like, you wanted to make.
Yeah,
and
and
it was a book. Like, that is to people, that's the definition of success.
Story. It makes a way better story. Because you know what? Would you want to listen to someone whose life story is just, everything was wonderful and then I died?
Yeah.
No movie is ever built like that or written like that. No good book. I mean, trust me, there's some, maybe a bio textbook was everything was, dandy and then it died. But besides that, like, nothing interesting is that simple. Mm-hmm. And yet everyone uses that as like an excuse. And I think it just like requires like true perspective shift and like real acknowledgement of like, are you just going to spend X amount of years just begrudging and like complaining about homework, which, by the way, you signed up to do when you came to college. So anyone that's like, papers, I'm like, go fucking write them.
Yeah. You actually might
learn something.
Believe it or not, you might enjoy the process of writing it and be like, wow, I learned
It took
a lot.
me so long to enjoy the process
like
of writing.
because
Mara is a wonderful writer.
Yeah.
Wonderful writer.
Well, and I'm sure you are. And I'll read your writing next. And out loud.
Right.
Just be one podcast episode, me reading. There it is. With voices. But like, if you think about it, like, it's just so much time spent begrudging it and like just complaining. And like, what do you actually get? Like, there's a difference between having the real frustrations, and I get it. Like, trust me, like, I get it. I understand the financial side, and there are people that, granted, had much more financial adversity than I had in college. 100%, I acknowledge that. I'm privileged to be able to say, like, my parents contributed, I took out loans, and I was able to go to college. There's plenty of people that can't do that. However, like, if you are there, like, be there and like make the most of being there.
Learn as much as you can from everyone.
And take it in instead of just spending the whole time just like, and like letting other people take your control away from you. Like, if I were to have taken every time someone said no to me and just been like, okay, I guess that's it, like, I would not have 2 degrees. I probably wouldn't even have 1 degree at this point, because I lived in the registrar's office to the point where one of the registrars one day was like, Camila, you know the program course like more than people who are hired to be registrars know it. And I was like, yeah, it's because my first week here, I was like, I'm going to graduate from here and I'm going to do it in less time than everyone says it's going to take me, and I'm going to do it my way and study the things I want to study and still be obviously within the lines of the courses, but like, I'm not going to let anyone tell me no. And I didn't.
Yeah. And
so like, when people are like, oh, well, I can't get the classes because they're full, I'm like, well, show up on the first day and ask.
Yeah.
Like, nothing in life is going to happen because you want it to happen, and you sit in bed and you're like, wow, it'd be really nice if rainbows just dropped from the sky. And trust me, I'm all about manifesting and like doing all kinds of shit. Like, I have plenty of stories about that, but you have to actively work at it too.
Every day.
I am so happy you said this, okay, because I'm going to go off on like a little tangent here.
Go.
I believe that our society, granted, we have some fucked up shit that we have to deal with. I am not trying to minimize that at all, because I realize that, again, I am also very privileged. However, there is a sense of victim mentality for a lot of people, especially on college campuses. I know exactly what you're talking about. I also have some people in my life who are constantly complaining that they aren't where they want to be, and other people next to them are, you know, doing things, and I'm like,
because they see it on social media, the highlight reel.
well,
you know,
that, but
they
it's
compare
also
themselves.
like,
You're not doing anything.
you're not doing anything. You're sitting at home and you're expecting someone to come to you
Fairy godmother.
You're entitled enough to think that you're entitled to someone coming in and helping you. No, get off your ass. And like, I have always preached this since I came to DePaul. The amount of resources that have surrounded us on this campus are incredible, especially for being in the middle of nowhere, Indiana. Like, take advantage of them. If you don't, you're not paying. You're paying to take a few classes. You're not
complain about them.
Yeah, right. Like, there's so much more to college than just the classes.
Right.
I mean, that is a key component, yes, but like, there's the clubs, there's the ways that you can like network with people on campus. There's like everything under the sun that you can get involved with. Stack up your resume, work hard, make those connections. And I'm always like the biggest proponent of like we've talked about networking a lot. 9 times out of 10, if you go up and to someone and say, hey, I want to know about this, teach me about this, can you help me with this? Because they're an expert at it. They're going to be like, fuck yeah, I'll tell you all about it.
Half the time, you're only not learning it because you're not asking.
Exactly.
And I say that all the time. Like, if you don't ask, the answer is always going to be no.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then if you get a no, okay, cool. Ask again. Ask differently. Ask someone else.
Yeah.
Think of it differently. And there's so much you can do, and yet everyone just wants to list out all the reasons why they don't, right? And I think there's a beautiful balance between, and this is like where I talk about like personal development, like having like sometimes of an imbalance, because there needs to be a fine line between like, yes, there are real obstacles, like I'm an able-bodied person, like I'm not gonna ever think that my life experience is the same as someone who has different experiences with their bodies or their mobility or whatever, you know what I mean? Like everyone has different types of privilege, but there's a difference between being able to recognize that and then also recognizing the things that we face and the challenges that we have and the obstacles in front of us, and like how to marry the two together with grace and compassion for ourselves and like a full human experience, because you also don't win at anything by being like, everything's amazing all the time and here I am ready to shine. Like, does not work, because like eventually it's going to come up with like catch up with you and it's going to bite you in the ass. So like you need to have a real experience, and a real human experience means a lot of shit and a lot of highlights and just like a blend of the two together. And that's what life is. Right. And if you don't learn to do that here on a college campus where like
you're surrounded by people who like
you're surrounded by friends, you're living with friends, like you get to have all these kind of opportunities and experiences. If you don't do it then when are you going to do it? Are you just going to wake up one day when you're 42 and be like, I know what I'll do now? Like, sure, some people do that. Right. But every single person that I've met, like, that talks about, because I started putting myself in like personal development conferences when I was like 19, and really it's because Cutco, shout out to Cutco, I love you so much. Cutco started putting me in them when I was 17, so I started like thinking about mindset and growth and all these things when I was 17, and then I started paying for it myself when I was 19. So like I spent a lot of times with people in the room that were 30, 40, 50 years older than I was,
and that's how you learn.
And not just that, everyone was always like, oh my god, if only I had thought to do something like this when I and like, yes, on one hand, it's like, okay, tell me one more time, like, that you wish you were as young as I am. But, like, you're going to either find all the reasons why you can't do something, or you're going to use that as a reason that you can. Yeah. And I think that that was one of my biggest motivations in writing Swipeable, was, like, I refuse to, like, let people make excuses. Yeah. Yeah, you're in college. Yeah, life is imploding. Yeah, you've got all this shit going on, and no one understands how hard it is to be you. 100%. So, like, give yourself some grace. Let yourself cry it out. Have, your day in bed when you don't want to see anyone, and then the next day, get out of bed and go fucking do something with it. Otherwise, what are you doing?
Yeah. Seriously. Damn.
Yeah.
Fuck. Shit.
I love that energy, because you know what? I had that mindset switch after Cape Town, and it really started in Cape Town when I met people like you. Like, I was like,
so funny, because I hated the version I was in Cape Town.
Really?
Yeah.
But
I did as well.
That's the thing, though. Like, I learned so much from you. I hope you know that. Even if you were at a dark time, you're like, what'd you learn? No, but I'm serious. Like, after Cape Town, my entire life has changed in the past year. Like, you've probably seen it on my Instagram. Like, I have tried so hard to become a better version of myself. And I have, and I've seen my growth, and I've seen like how it's inspired other people. And like, that's what keeps keeping me going. That's why we did this podcast. I want to share this, all I've learned with the world.
Yeah.
So, one, I really look up to you, and like, thank you for even coming. She drove 4 hours from Nashville to be on this podcast, and then she's flying back later. Like, she's not from here at all.
Party. And you're not making any excuses. You're like, let's fucking do it. Coronavirus.
No, I called her yesterday and I was like, yeah, so we have to be out in 24 hours. Like, do you still want to do this podcast? And I was like, I want to do it. She's like, let's do it. She's like, I'm going to drive. I'll drive earlier. Like, what do we need to do? Like, adaptable. Like, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, you get to have your second of being like, ah, and then you get to like do something about it. You know what I mean? And I think that that's really something that I took away. So coming back to Cape Town, I mean, I actually, when I got back, I felt so many different ways about my time in Cape Town. And it's funny that you say that, and that actually warms my little brown heart, because I turned myself so far down when I was living in Cape Town.
I had no idea.
So much less positive. I was so much less like the true, like, real me. I put so many filters on myself to make, like, allow for people to like me. I like diluted myself, and I was like just this like whatever version of myself that wasn't even capable of like standing up for myself, because I just was scared to be in a house or in a building where no one liked me. That was my number one concern. And at the end of my Cape Town experience, you don't know this because I haven't seen you in a year and a half, but the last day I was in Cape Town, whether I had a very weird reaction to like these like supposed to be like relaxing honey thing that I ate, or I don't know, like, or the Cape Town beer festival just hit me different, or someone slipped something into my drink. I don't know. All I know is that like between 4 and 8 p.m. I don't have any memory of my last day in Cape Town. Like halfway through the beer festival we were at, I blacked out. I yelled at people. I got so aggressive. Like,
I didn't even know this story.
Yeah, I didn't really talk about it when I got home, but I said things that I didn't mean. Like, I was so mean. I fell in the shower, cracked my head. I came back, like the day I landed back in the Bay Area, I had blood on the back of my head from cracking my head on the tile of my apartment.
Was I gone? I had gone.
Yeah, you were already gone.
That's why I had no idea. I was
part
like,
of it was like panic, because I wasn't with anyone that I'd spent all this time with. All the people that I had worked so hard to like make them like me. And then everyone was gone. I was the last one to leave. And so I was with a bunch of people that I didn't know all that well. And my biggest concern, like when I started to come to at like 11 p.m., like I did security, like so uncoordinated. I was almost falling over myself. I was so sick. I spent 3 hours in the airplane on the way to Paris to Charles de Gaulle, like dry heaving in the bath. It was awful. It was terrible.
It's a terrible experience.
I got back and I was like, all I felt was immense guilt at like the way that those people had seen, and the thought that that's the version of myself that they were all going to go home with, like those specific people. And I was like, wow, they're going to go home thinking she's the worst person ever. And then I was like, I did so much work, Camila, to make people like me. And then that's the last thing that people saw of me. Like, it was honestly where I think I really started to like 2019, a lot of it was really just forgiveness for myself and like acceptance of where we were. And a lot of it, still some days I like feel guilty. I'm like, man, I can't believe I yelled, because like I'm not an aggressive, you know me. I'm not an aggressive person, like
at all.
At all. I try to be really measured, and I don't know what the hell came out like in those interactions. I just remember one of the only memories I have of that day is someone crying because of something that I said. And I sometimes feel so guilty about it, and then I have to remind myself that like we're human beings, and like whatever the cause for my body having this horrific reaction, like I get to take that, and I can either sit and wallow in it and think that I'm the worst person to walk the earth, or I can like really use it as a point of challenge of my relationship with myself, with
during
people,
that time,
with alcohol, whatever, and like find forgiveness like in that, and not feel the need to like just delve into that, because I spent like a month and a half after that just replaying that day like over and over and over and over in my head. So
I'm the same way, where like I worry a lot about what my impression is to other people. So like if I feel like I haven't made a good impression, I really beat myself up. I want everyone to love me. That's just part of who I am and how I was made. I want everyone to think highly of me. And like when my integrity is questioned, like I fall apart. Like I understand that feeling, because it's a terrible feeling. I want everyone to enjoy my presence.
Welcome to the world. They won't.
Yeah,
they won't.
I think if you get into this shame spiral, I mean, I'll just be really forthcoming. I have really bad depression and anxiety, and so much of my struggle this year at the beginning of the year was from the shame I had of making other people's lives around me difficult because I was dealing with this constant panic attacks. Like I felt like I was a burden to every single person around me. And once I learned, I think this semester especially, to let that go, and through a lot of therapy, by the way, to let that go and say, like, what's done is done. I can't relive those moments. I can take them with me, like you said, as a measure of how I'm doing, as a measure to myself of like, okay, did I just have a panic attack? And yes, I did. And am I feeling shameful about it? And am I apologizing to everyone around me that had to do it? Like, that's not what I need to be worried about right now.
Other people, focus on you.
Yeah. And of course, apologies, say them when they're necessary. I'm not saying don't be like, sorry.
You're a jerk. And that's just how I am.
Right.
Virgo.
No, absolutely not. But like, I just think there's a balance between recognizing, okay, how much of this was maybe self-inflicted, or how much of this was me perpetuating and
making
escalating things.
Yeah.
And then how much of it was just something that's like out of my goddamn control. And how to, like, you seem to be very much about balance. How do you marry the two between giving yourself grace and saying, it's okay, like, you fucked up, it's not all you, this is not all your correct brain, like the logical side of you talking, and saying, okay, yeah, I fucked up, I'm so sorry that I hurt you, I didn't mean to say those things. Like, it's not an easy thing to navigate, and then it brings a lot of shame and a lot of regret. And I think part of the reason I'm leaving now and feeling so drained is thinking to myself, what could I have done? What could I have changed? Who could I have said something? How could you can't live like that.
Yeah.
You just can't.
No, and I think you have to have love for yourself. Like, when, like, something that Alana Pratt taught me, who's like this amazing self-intimacy coach, and she's just like, she's majestic.
I love that.
I love her so much. I was at a conference this past December, and so my friends like to say I wild out when there's like auctions. Like, never bring me to an auction. My ass was bidden. I was like, hey. So there was a dinner offered with her, and she had led us through this meditation visualization during the event that I was sobbing. I also think partially because I was like intaking all the shame of the whole crowd. There was 400 people. And so but I lost my freaking mind. Like, I was sobbing so hard. Dominic had to be like, you're okay. Everything's okay. Like, I love you. I had a massive panic, everything. So anyway, so they auctioned off like this dinner with her. So I went, and she asked me halfway through dinner, I was telling a story, I started crying, like in the middle of a restaurant, of course, with like strangers all around me. Perfect. And she asked me, she's like, are you willing to go into this right now? And I was like, okay, well, you get paid like $5,000 to do things to people, so go. I was like, okay, I'm ready. And she's like, okay, close your eyes. And she took me through like the most crazy, like probably like 5 to 10 minutes of my life. Like,
wow.
It was insane. I mean, like, someone next to me was like, yo, your body was like your soul was on the fucking, like, trying to go to the astral. Like, this was freaking crazy to witness. And I like lost all concept that anyone else was in the restaurant besides my table. I could feel like the table. I couldn't feel anything else. And I was sobbing my heart out in the middle of this restaurant with everyone watching me. Only one person that I knew at that table. And basically what I got from that, and bringing back to your point, was like, the shame also plays a role, because the shame allows you, like, you get something emotionally from everything that you do. Like, even when you're feeling shameful or whatever, like, it still gives you something, and it serves you in a capacity. Now, that might not be a capacity that you want to be served in again or right now, but it still did something. And I think sometimes we try so hard to overcome or change who we are, or in our efforts to grow who we are, that we don't just integrate the past versions of ourselves and say thank you. Like,
I hate when people like look at pictures of themselves from like when they were younger and be like, ew, like, oh, like, no, appreciate that person for who they
and
were.
Appreciate the things that you said, even the crappiest things that you've ever done, said. Okay, mind you, this is also with the disclaimer of like, I'm not advocating for hurting other people or like assaulting them or like killing them. However, don't do that. That's not the point. But even all the horrible things that you feel the most shame about are the things that you've probably learned the most from. And the shame that you feel now is is like you can integrate that and say, hey, thanks. Like, I appreciate you for being here. I appreciate you for showing me that that's not the kind of person,
I want to
or that's
be.
not the version of myself that I want to show up as anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, thanks
Yeah.
for hard checking
Yeah.
me.
Definitely.
Like, I appreciate you. And now I'm good. And then you can,
Yeah.
like, let the shame dissipate.
Yeah.
Because, like, that's really where we get in trouble is we just hold on to the shame and we're like, oh, God. And I can genuinely say, like, I have 0 regrets in life. Like, 0. Absolutely 0. Like, I live my life with no regrets. And I don't say that to be a Hallmark card. I say that because I genuinely, like, I don't. Because even that, like, even the horror of, like, knowing that I destroyed a relationship that probably was a really good friendship because I made someone cry and I made someone feel all this horrible. Like, I don't regret that because that really hard checked me. By the time I got home,
Yeah.
I had to have an honest conversation with myself and, like, really
The reflection you had made you
exactly
grow, yeah.
and, like, I would not have had the forgiveness of 2019 had it not been for that. So do I feel sad that someone else had to be hurt in the byproduct? Yes. But at the end of the day, like, all you could do after that, like you were saying, was just apologize. Like, I apologized multiple times, and beyond that, like, I had to learn also to just let it go. Like, there's nothing
Yeah.
else I can do.
Yeah.
And, like, there's
Yeah.
no use in me coming back to that person and being like, hey, it's me a year and a half later, I feel bad about what I said, which I
Yeah.
do. But at the end of the day, like, that's not productive, you know?
Right. And so my therapist does this thing. It's called dropping the rope. And so anything, and you had mentioned too, trying to almost overload all the negative thoughts with positive thoughts to counteract it makes it 1,000 times worse, because all you're doing is pushing and pushing and pushing.
Yeah, and trying to force it.
It's harder and harder. And the moment you decide, let go, like, just drop the rope. He just says, drop the rope. And then all that pressure dissipates because you're not trying to fight back against it anymore.
Yeah.
And this is kind of a silly example, but I'm a tennis player. Well, I was I was a college tennis player.
Her season was just ripped out.
season
Her
was ripped
entire
out away from
tennis
me.
career just like gone. It's really
So
sad.
I'm mourning that. But we just a day or two before our season was canceled, we had a group session with a sports psychologist, and he happens to be my personal counselor as well, not for sports, but whatever. So he
So you
used
were
the
like,
same.
"Don't look at me."
Yeah, we were both kind of like, this
You
is
were
awkward.
like,
We're not
oh
gonna,
my God, so nice to
yeah,
meet
we're
you.
not going to pretend like we know each other and you know, like, all the deep dark secrets of my history, but it's great to meet you. But so he did the same kind of drop the rope thing that we talk about with my anxiety, but we in a group setting. But he had talked about with tennis, like, the thoughts. Tennis is like an extremely mental sport, and most of, like, the
I
mistakes.
played tennis for 1 month, so I empathize.
So you understand.
I know.
I was a high level.
But, like, if the thoughts get in your head, like, the self-doubt is crippling. I mean, Elisa's seen me, like, struggle with
Beat herself
this.
up after a match or something.
Yeah. And, like, if you get into those spiraling thoughts while you're on the court, like, it's just kind of game over. And so
Right.
we were learning as a team how to kind of each of our own individual versions of ourselves deal with that and power through that. And there was one girl that asked, like, should I just counteract any negative thought I have with a positive thought, because that's what I've been trying to do for a long time. And he's like, I mean,
Hell no.
just let yourself feel what you're feeling and understand that the self-doubt that you have is merely language. Like,
Yeah.
what you are saying to yourself, I'm weak, I'm terrible, I'm this, I'm that. It's literally, if you look at it and step back and realize it's just words.
Yeah. Also,
And it holds power.
what you said about, like, letting yourself feel, I think that's really relevant for what's going on right now, because I like the tears of this past week. Everyone's just like, no, don't cry, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
but I'm like,
no, I need to cry.
it feels good. Honestly,
Yeah.
like, crying is a
Yeah.
beautiful thing. Like, I hate when people don't let people just cry, because it's like,
Oh, I've
you
gotten
need that.
so good at crying in public.
Yeah.
Oh my God, same.
Now I'm like,
I love crying.
Look at me in my distress.
I don't
People are like,
care.
are you okay? I'm like, no.
No, but yes,
I
because
don't
I'm
care.
because
Been a
I'm
hard
feeling.
day.